Hi, we're at TU-Automotive Detroit 2015, and here I'm joined by Brian Simmermon, Vice President and Chief Information Officer for Subaru. Hi, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Firstly, can I ask you, what is your role within Subaru?
Well, I have the responsibility of all of the technology and support of all of Subaru of America. That also recently has included the development and deployment of the technology and support of the telematics that Subaru has announced and will be rolling out in the next several weeks to our customers.
And what's key on that new rollout? What are the key features?
Well, you know, I look back at the telematics space and I've seen it change over the last 5 or 6 years, and you know, I think we as an organization look at it as it is the thing that it is the functionality that every consumer is going to want. It's going to be just like air conditioning and power windows. So as we've been looking at our first generation of telematics, we've really tried to deploy what we thought was, as a startup, what we thought was most important to consumers, and then looking at the next generation to come in the next few years.
And from Subaru's point of view, specifically Subaru's point of view, what are the opportunities? Because they're not a Ford, they're not a GM. They are a smaller player, but nonetheless a very important niche player. What's the specific opportunities Subaru will have with this technology?
I think, you know, first and foremost, we look at it as, you know, from a safety and security piece, we believe that is our brand. And, you know, we're all-wheel drive all the time for all of our vehicles. And when you look at crash notification, advanced roadside assistance technology, it's important to our consumers that we offer that. When you then take it to that next level where information is coming from the vehicle, we believe we'll be able to get data information earlier to correct any problems or issues we may have with the vehicle, and ensure that we can communicate to the customer as real time as possible with if they are having an issue with their vehicle, how they can either repair it themselves or bring it into their local retailer to have that repair done.
And how does this fit with the Subaru range? Because Subaru it has two faces to it. It has the utilitarian vehicle, agricultural vehicle if you like, and yet it still has a very rich racing history. Will the technology suit both platforms just as well?
I think, you know, from the perspective, we are deploying it in all of our platforms. So when you look at those two very different, you know, outdoorsy type user, as well as maybe the race enthusiast, it will help them gain information about their vehicle. You know, and let's face the facts, everybody wants to be safe and secure, whether you're racing or whether you're driving into the mountains for your road adventure. So again, tying that into our brand as just truly part of our DNA, we think it's important.
But what are the obstacles? What's the sort of objections you may face with the rollout of this technology?
Well, I think, you know, like anything, when you're pulling data from the vehicle, the question is, where does the consumer see that? You know, we are trying to pull data from the vehicle with the goal to help the consumer be able to have a better experience. You know, there are always concerns about data protection and data liabilities and those type of things, and we take that very, very seriously. But you also have to be very careful. We don't share any of that data. We keep it internal. We use it for quality control. We use it for, again, helping the consumer. So I think some of those obstacles fall in that space. If you look at kind of the industry as a whole when it comes to telematics, it's a very new industry. You know, and so there's not a ton of third-party companies that are out there. Yes, it's growing, but that have had a lot of experience at this. So we're learning like everybody else, you know, what's right, what's wrong, what's best for the consumer, what's best for, you know, us as an OEM.
Excellent. And looking forward, you know, if we can look forward, where do we think the technology will lead us? Because we talked earlier about different strands, could be different roads are being explored at the moment. Where does Subaru think this technology will take Subaru?
Well, when you start looking at some of the different technologies we've rolled out over the years, recently with the new EyeSight product, where it is driver-aided type technology that's out there, and you start overlapping this with telematics and machine-to-machine connectivity, and now being for a car over time to be able to see another car, or a car over time being able to see infrastructure. The big discussion, of course, is self-driving vehicles, and I think that probably is coming, but I think that's years away. If you look at, though, the issue of being able to be safe and secure, knowing that there may be an oncoming car that is, and you're communicating to that oncoming car, and it looks like they're going to run the stop street, that your vehicle can stop automatically. That's part of where we believe this industry will go over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And then I think maybe many years further than that, we'll really start seeing self-driving vehicles. But our focus is, and it's again back to our DNA, is about that safety and security of that driver and the passengers in the car.
Excellent. And just lastly, from your point of view and from your organisation's point of view, events like this, as TU-Automotive Detroit, what does it bring to the industry? What is the benefit of being here?
Well, I think first and foremost, because because it is a new industry, you are bringing a lot of the different players out there together. As an OEM, being able to walk around the event to meet new companies that maybe you couldn't get acquainted with easily without doing a lot of research is really important, especially in this newer space. We work with partners like everybody else does, and we're working with several of them in both our Generation 1 and future Generation 2 vehicles, but it's good to see what everybody else is doing as well. You see some of the other OEMs displaying what they're doing. So again, it's a great learning experience that we can take away and take ideas and say, hey, if somebody else is doing that, should we consider it? Maybe not. Maybe it's not part of what we should be doing, but at least it adds a lot of value.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Yes, thank you.